Hello, everybody. We are coming from New York City with a man who misspent his youth watching low budget grindhouse movies on Manhattan's 42nd Street. This man has been making his own films since he was a teen on 8mm, 16mm, and beyond, with Basket Case coming out in '82 on a budget of $35,000 approximately. Brain Damage followed, then Frankenhooker, Basket Case 2 and 3, Bad Biology, so many other amazing things he's known for. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the legendary Frank Henenlotter.
Legendary. What a crock of shit. But Dominic, let me ask you.
The wonderfully modest and self-effacing Frank Henenlotter. Frank, what made you want to become...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can everybody see Dominic?
Yeah, they can see me. I'm here.
Is that a used condom on your bed?
That is not. That is not a used condom on my bed. I'll show you what that is. That is a dog toy.
Well, it sure looked like one.
It's an egg. My dog likes to throw things around everywhere.
What kind of dog?
I've got a little beagle. He's like a miniature beagle. He's crossed with a Pomeranian.
I grew up with a beagle, not little, and it was the love of my life.
Yeah, Bones is the love of mine too. Yeah. Apart from my wife. Yeah. Got to say that.
Frank, what was the name of your pooch?
Well, I had nothing to do with it. The family named him Ripple. Huh? Because I think the mother was named Jill and the father was named Rip something, so they called it Ripple.
Oh.
I'm not bothered by dogs.
Or they were Grateful Dead fans. That's a good name for a Grateful dog.
Doesn't matter to me, you know.
Well, let's talk about first of all, because we're really going to be, we have an audience that's hungry to ask you questions, but I do want to start by saying you're a New Yorker through and through, and you saw all these great films in the theater that really influenced you. But how did you make the jump from being a film lover to wanting to make your own films? What was your process?
Well, I used to make my own, home movies first in regular 8 millimeter because that's all that was available when I started, regular 8, not Super 8. And then I thought somebody gave me a 16 millimeter camera, and I thought, oh, whoa, what an upgrade! What's next, Cinerama? And I started shooting in 16 and really liking it, and then doing sound and all that. So it seemed logical to me to try a feature film. I didn't I didn't expect it to ever get sold. I never expected it to, especially after I saw it, because it was not the film I was hoping it would be. But I thought, you know, i- i- in those days there were enough film distributors so that were eager to take any piece of shit they can. They knew how to market this stuff. So I knew, it someday it'll. I thought maybe it'll play 42nd Street for a week, and that would be it. I'd never hear it again. But never expected tours and what happened, and that's that. And now it's been remastered and restored by Museum of Modern Art. Now,
Mhm.
ah, that's not a career goal for me, and it's not something I would have aimed for because it would have ended in failure. So you just let the stuff happen, and you say, "Oh, that's great." Actually, my first question to them, to Ron, the curator there, I said to him, "Ron, have you actually seen the film?" And he said, "Oh, Frank, yeah, I've seen it twice, and once with the commentary, which I loved." So I'm thinking, okay, I'm absolved of all guilt. Go right ahead.
We're in an environment where there are so many erudite film critics where there's some certain level where filmmaking has to be if it's considered quote unquote good or great or important or relevant. And then there's the rest of us, and it's a huge rest of us that really appreciates a film that makes us laugh or make or wonder how this was done. Do you, I'm sure you can, but you tell me, please. You could wrap your brain around why people would love Basket Case for warts and all, for all its flaws.
Actually, I can't. I don't mean that. I really don't understand the popularity of the film. I really do not. Um, I'm kind of baffled by it all. Every time I've ever seen a clip from it, I always wish I could reshoot that scene.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking, if I reshot this, if I fixed it up to that, it probably wouldn't be the success it turned out to be. So I'm very, I make them, I walk away. What's next?
Well, and for what's next, there's validation in your choices when you said whatever I want to do next, brain damage.
Yeah.
It could be as odd or eclectic or weird, quote unquote, as you want to make it, because that is your choice that you made it, and people responded positively to that as well.
Yeah. I, uh, After making Basket Case 3, there was a drastic funeral held for all the independent movie theaters and all the small exploitation companies. And the few that were around that would contact me, the first thing they would say is, "Hey, we'd love to do Basket Case 4." And I would go, "No, no." And I would also ask, "Hey, we got a great slasher script for you. Would you like that?"
Mm.
And I would say, "Okay, but can I rewrite?" And no, 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 you can't touch the script. Thank you, but no thanks. So I never felt like I missed anything.
And well, you're one of the rare filmmakers who got to create your own material and make it. I mean, sometimes you have to wait a little while in between. But I'm just going to name drop, and then I do want to give it to the audience with our time. But you have incredibly indelible, memorable movies that made us all laugh and smile. And horror or not, cult or not, genre or not, there's something that capitalizes not only as as exploitation, but they tap into what makes those movies so fun in the first place, like the wall of films behind you.
Oh, well, all right, thank you. But I also try my best to offend because that's memorable. That's why.
Yeah.
And people love to be offended. They wouldn't admit to it, but they love to go, "Oh my God! Oh Jesus Christ! What does he do?" And I like that. So there we go.
Well, let's dive into some questions, Dominic, if you would.
For sure. First, I would like to point out that Sharon Loomis in our comment section here has said Basket Case was the first horror movie I can remember that I was too young to get into the theater, that I was obsessed with. But I did get in and loved every minute of it. Thank you, Mr. Henenlotter, for shaping my childhood and the many years since.
Well, thank you for that, Sharon. I mean, I I was surprised over the years when uh, when I stopped making films after Basket Case 3. I just assumed I was forgotten. I mean, why not? And it started when I went to London to show Bad Biology and Fright Fest, and people were coming up to me with copies of Basket Case and this, and I said, "Oh my God!" And this thing that surprised me, they were saying, "Yeah, I was 8 years old when I first saw this." I'm thinking, "Oh my
Yeah,
God!"
that
No,
was me too.
you know, I mean, at the film, the MPA gave it an X rating. We didn't accept it, and we cheated, and because we would release it with an R after they gave us an X. And what are they going to do? Put me in ratings jail? I mean, take my assets. I have no assets. Go ahead. So, and the MPA ratings, they've always been absolute shitheads. And they're just, they really don't, I mean, they do it in secrecy. They're obnoxious. Oh, you want to hear a funny story about
Oh,
Frankenhooker?
yeah.
All right, we sent it off for rating. Now, give me a break. And they said, oh, it's an X.
And yes,
But
sorry, you're talking about Frankenhooker right now?
yeah,
Hmm.
Okay.
and actually, let me back up that story. The head of the MPAA called the company that made it, Shapiro Glickenhaus, and they said, "Yes, we've just watched your film Frankenhooker, and we are giving it an S rating." And the secretary said, "S? You mean S as in sex?" And he said, "No, S as in shit." Now,
Wow.
these people are there to do their ratings job, not to be critics. Well,
Mhm.
Jim
Yeah.
Glickenhaus, who owned Shapiro Glickenhaus, said, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to go on the attack." And he had the clout uh, to go to every trade paper, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Box Over this, assailing and screaming and accusing the MPA of all this biotech. It was great. We just were gloating. They never responded either because what could they say? You know. And when we submitted Basket Case 2, we both worried about the sex scene with Bilal. In another time, yeah, they would have demanded cuts in that, but whew, it just passed right away. Go on, go away. You got an R, just go, get out of here. So anyway,
I think ultimately people who really pay attention to this are the ones who are waiting for that unrated cut. They're waiting for that quote
oh,
unquote
of course,
director's cut.
of
They,
course.
they it's if you're either going to bring your kids to these or not, but it comes down to
I
the
mean,
NPA is inconsistent, and they're supposedly all parents, but I don't know what kind of movies their kids get to see. That's my question.
listen, we all. That, look, when I was a kid, I grew up on a diet. of horror films. I had two movie theaters in my hometown on Long Island. One was a big, uh, uh, like first run house, and the other one was like a little tiny little flea pit. And they would both get movies, and I was there at one of them every weekend.
Hmm.
I mean, at the big one, I mean, I saw 13 Ghosts with the ghost viewer and had the balloon skeleton go over the top. It was that kind of thing. They also had the Three Stooges make an appearance. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a perfect life.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and
Well,
my dad loved horror movies. My mother did not. So my dad would always create the fiction that he was taking me to see one,
Mm,
so that
as an excuse.
it's just a crock. But we had that was great, and I loved almost everything I saw back then. It was only when I got a few years older that I became really obnoxious. And I would sit through the film, and if I didn't like it, I would just go out loud. You know. And my favorite year is the years is 1959, 1960. Those were the films that had the greatest impact on me.
Well, these movies that you saw, the William Castle films, things like that, they, where you'd have these guest stars like Three Stooges, these were events. And this was also your sort of the babysitter. They put the kids,
Yeah.
in droves in the theaters for a Saturday matinee to, back to back if you could. Did you, when you were making your movies, did you feel consciously or subconsciously like you wanted to capture some of that fun with your films?
You're overthinking it. I all I thought about was, Jesus Christ, do we have enough money? Can I finish the movie yet? We didn't have enough money. We didn't have enough this. And all I would worry about every night, I'd go home and go on, oh God, did I miss a shot? I must have missed some shots. And what am I doing? I mean, it just was a state of nervousness during the whole thing. So, and I really still had no idea how to do this yet. And I actually, it's the only Basket Case is the only film that I had scenes I cut out of the film mercifully, and it made the film better. And I realized, oh, okay, you overshot, wasted all of our time. Don't do it again. And I never did. There's no deleted scenes from any other film. They were
So
all on
you demonstrated a learning curve. You obviously came back for more punishment several times.
yeah. Well, it was a learning curve that I liked. I mean, Brain Damage was actually, I shot in 35 millimeter. Holy shit. 35 millimeter. Well, that's great. Okay. And how come it's not square? Oh, it's the aspect ratio is 185. Oh, I like it. Okay. And then I got so used to it that I didn't, uh, yeah, I just needed to stand next to the camera, not rather than look through the viewfinder of some of them and see, because I couldn't uh, shoot my films because of the talent we had. You can't hire somebody and then just let me be behind the camera. I
Sure.
try to do it as often as possible, and often I got away with it. But uh, especially if it was a complicated shot, and I would say, "Well, just let me do it," and because I just love the feel of getting that shot and just looking through that world of the eyepiece. It was just, it was very relaxing. And then after 16 years to come back and do Bad Biology, I was the most relaxed I ever was. I couldn't understand it. I just worried about absolutely nothing. I would just sit all day, make bad jokes, and chuckle.
Living
And
the
we had
dream.
numerous production problems, numerous, including setting the house on fire. And that was outside, and I and the DP put it out just as the fire department showed up. But and we had no water in the place, so it was, it was scary. It's a long story, but
Well,
anyway.
that film was years in the making. Were you spending years trying to get it made, or did you
No,
really want to take a
no, no,
break?
no, no. It was made at the last minute by, rapper R.A. the Rugged Man, Ryan Thorburn. He said, "Hey, I think I can get some money. You want to do one?" And I said, "Sure, but let's if we're going to do another one, let's make up for lost time and let's do something that nobody else would do."
Mm.
And I think I wrote a couple. I didn't even write script. I wrote shots that, and sure enough, they're in the film. And
Hmm.
we had a great, and he did most of the dialogue. I would write it in, you know, correct grammar, and he
Mhm.
would turn it into uh, better, better dialogue. Okay, you know, and he knew the people to cast in that. So it's as much his film as it is mine.
Ah,
We
I
do
see.
have a fan, Michael, who has said that they have seen Bad Biology over there. I
Yeah,
believe Michael is from Russia, I believe.
Russia.
But they've said it's pretty different from the old movies. And can we expect a new movie from you?
Who the hell knows? You know,
That's the
that
best answer.
I don't have an agent. I never did. I don't know how to raise money, but Gabe Bartalos, did the makeup effects on the last uh, films that I made, he did all the makeup effects except for Basket Case because I didn't meet him yet.
Mhm.
And he started making his own films and that, and he wants us to make one more film.
Mm.
And I'm of the age I'm figuring, yeah, it just probably might be the last one. So uh, I'm debating what I'm exactly how I'm going to do this, and because we have to do it for the smallest budget we've ever worked with, which is not a problem for me, you
Yeah.
know, and and we're going to shoot it in 35 millimeter.
Hmm.
Complete madness because he actually owns a 35 millimeter camera. So we're going to shoot it in 35. We're going to shoot it in Super 16, and we're going to shoot it in um, Super 8. You know,
Beautiful. On the note of your old movies, you were saying that during Basket Case you were a nervous wreck. But we do have a question from a backer, Dawson Quick, who says, "What did you find most rewarding about making Basket Case? Like, what was the most fun part of it?"
there was no fun. You see, I got to
No fun.
let me just back up a minute and tell you something. Making films is not fun. It's terrible, terrible hard work,
Yeah.
and all that blood. It's so difficult to make it work. Special effects eat up way too much time. So all I learned from Basket Case was after it was over, looking at it and saying, "Oh well, okay, all right, well that's pretty bad," and we'll take it from there next time. That's all. I mean, it's a everybody. Oh, Frank, I'd love to be in one of your films. I'd love you to kill me in one of the films. And I'm thinking, what a fool, because you're going to be miserable. It's going to take all day of in this awful blood, which will not dry and will start hardening on your body. So it's really hard work, and it for me, I don't like. I, I, I keep it all in the shots in my head. I usually
Mhm.
have a cheat page, and I have to look for the dialogue because I don't remember any of that, especially since RA improved it. So I don't really know what the hell we're shooting, and
Hmm.
it's. But I don't know. Did that answer the question, or did I take a detour too far again?
Is, is
Absolutely
the
perfect.
is
Oh,
the design of Belial at the very beginning,
yeah.
is that pretty much true to what you envisioned? Did you kind of go through a couple variations and then you
Yeah,
put budget and imagination together?
I wanted to have one arm that was a tentacle, you know. But
Mm.
let me just say, I wasn't sure what blouse should be. Unfortunately, I got this young kid who was just starting out in special effects called Kevin Haney, and he wanted to do it because why not? You know, and he hadn't worked on a film yet. So he came from Chillicothe, Ohio, or Chillicothe, I don't know. Um, and he said, "What do you want?" I said, "I don't know. Let's get a lot of clay, plasticine, and just see what emerges." And I said, "I do want Kevin Van Hentenrich's face to be in it." So
Mhm.
we did a face mask of Kevin, and it was apparent in the solid Belial. There were a couple of them. It wasn't too apparent in the rubber Belial because it had no structure behind it. So
Mhm.
But anyway, I remember walking in one day and thinking, "Oh, it's looking great." I said, "Oh, what is it?" No, that the I didn't like where the arm was, and he just took it. And I'm thinking, okay. Uh, and uh, and then I said, why is there a Coke bottle sticking up there? And he says, because we're running out of plasticine. Well, why? Of course we are. We have no money for anything. I think his budget to make Blag was probably $16. And I said, well, why don't we use it? Why don't make a bone? And so it was that unprepared. But the good thing that you can do with a film, especially if you're in charge of it, is you can make the best of whatever is in front of you. You know, if that's what it's
And,
got to be, okay, let's write it in.
and when you got to do Belial for part two,
Uh-huh.
did you use the original in any, or was there anything left of the
Well,
original?
I didn't want. Gabe Bartalos was going to do it. I didn't want to step on his toes, so he wanted to give Belial an arm up at the place where I said to Kevin Haney, no, get rid of it. So I just said, all right, this is his, and so he made a different kind of Belial. That's all, and it's similar. It just had that weird arm up there, and uh, we were able to do. We had a guy named David Kinlan who was an expert in animatronics, and he just loved filling that up with all kinds of gizmos. They both worked on brain damage for the first time,
Mhm.
and I mean, we had a lot of fun with that one, getting that, when you're holding up the monster and it's wiggling and all that stuff, and it's just hey, where were the wires for that? Well, they weren't at the time. They were selling a thing on a novelty that was in all the stores here of like a mechanical hand that would move.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cheap. So we just did it, and Dave just used the innards of it.
Ah,
Just shoved it in the puppet, and there we go.
That's beautiful. Speaking of brain damage, another one of our backers, Zach Wright, says that Brain Damage is his favorite film of yours. And I'd like to add onto this question. Um, what? Why did Dwayne and Belial turn up in Brain Damage? Because when I saw that scene for the first time, I didn't know who they were. Seeing it again as an adult, I cheered so
oh,
much when I saw them come on screen.
Well, the answer is I put them together in a scene because I could.
Yeah,
mm,
it's
If I was
brilliant.
working for a company, they would say, "What the hell are you doing?" And um, Kevin's hair was very short then, so we had to get some weird curly wig for him. But I liked the idea. It didn't matter if you didn't know that he was a character from another film, because he is there with some big basket. What's in the basket?
What's in the basket?
And Brian has a thing hiding on his body, and I think it was like a staring contest between two lunatics with little monsters. So I justified it that way.
It was a brilliant scene. It made me cheer so much.
one of the things that I really loved is that you grew up loving these classic monster movies. The world of famous monsters and horror hosts was really big, and starting in '58, going through the '60s. So you used horror host Zachar
Oh,
to
absolutely.
be the voice in Big Bang.
Hey, Brian. I used to do it better, but you know, um, he would even laugh to me. He goes, "Oh, why don't you take this one?" And he was part of the gateway into the Universal films, and I
Yeah.
would love it. And his success was predicated on the fact that he wasn't for kids; he was for adults, kids, teenagers. His humor was universal,
Mhm.
and he was just. Um, I'll give you an example. His show was playing Mighty Joe Young,
Mhm.
and exactly would occasionally interrupt the film to tell you something. And he was watching the film with Mighty Joe Young Jr., which was the worst dummy you could ever see, with a gorilla mask attached. Now, and that was all part of Zachary's shtick. He would do experiments on brains. They would be hopping in a pan, and you could see the wires, and the brains were cauliflower. We all knew this. That's the fun. So he's watching this, and at the end, and I was watching with a friend who lived in my neighborhood, and his father was uh, they, they had German roots, and the father looked like the quintessential German. He had no neck, an awful little hideous mustache, one of those, oh, yeah, and no sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I never saw the man smile, and he never even said hello to me every time I'm in the place. I don't, yeah, okay. So we're watching Zachary do Mighty Joe Young, and at the end of it, Zachary goes, "Oh, that was so lovely. Oh, did it get you?" And he said, "Oh, don't start crying now." And they had a water pump coming out of the mask, out of the eye. He was squirting tears at the camera. It's so funny. And all of a sudden, we hear this strange noise behind us in the room. And it was his father laughing. And Zachary was great. I didn't know who the voice of Elmer should be. I wanted an erudite, intelligent voice. I didn't want Freddy Krueger jokes.
Mhm.
I wanted Elmer to belittle him and get under his skin. But I was on the phone with an agent who did vocal talent, and she was reading down the thing, and she says, "John Zachary," and I went, "Whoa, stop, back up, John Zachary? You mean Zachary? You've been around with the same Zachary?" And she goes, "I guess so." She really didn't know. All right, and she told me what the price was, and I went, "No, no." She goes, "Well, that's what it is." I said, "No, I'm going to double it." I said,
Ah.
I only had him for one day. It wouldn't matter. And I doubled it. I never told him that, but it was good because he got a good paycheck. And I spent the day talking with him and recording. And he was just one of the friendliest, likable. Oh my God.
Mm.
And we couldn't put his name in the film because he turned out to be SAG. He was in SAG, the union. And if they found out that he was in it, the producers, I wouldn't be punished. He would be. That's how SAG kept their people under control. He would be fined.
Mm.
Or they could do a bunch of things to him. They could throw him out there. So he said, he first said, "Oh, just put your name on. You tell him you did it." And I said, "Well, I can't." So we just didn't use anybody, which I got a lot of flack from people saying, "Well, you're trying to hide Zach." Well, sorry. If I had known you were going to ask that, I would have given you a special phone call and asked you for permission. But, so when I did Frankenhooker, I wrote the weatherman scene just for him. I wanted him to be on camera. I wanted him to be dressed exactly. I told the makeup department, do not touch his makeup. Let him do it. And sure enough, I got one of the makeup people running out going, "Frank, you got to stop him. It looks so phony." And I went, "Yes." and just before we were about to shoot it, he said to me, "Frank, I'm a little confused. How am I supposed to? How am I supposed to play this as a weatherman?" I said, "No, you're supposed to be Zachary. You just happen to be doing the weather." And he just burst out laughing. He goes, "I got it. All right. So,
Perfect.
I mean, just an absolute delight. And I did keep in touch with him over the years. I mean, he lasted so long.
Mm.
And a lot of wonderful stories to tell about him, but it was, um, you know, it's always sad when you see someone you love in the health department declining,
Yeah.
but his
Mhm.
brain was not. He
Yeah.
was dead a lot. I mean, one of the times I went over to have dinner with him, I said, "Hey, you remember me, Frank, from Brain Damage?" And he goes, I said, "From Frankenhooker?" And he goes, "No, I never even heard of it." He was laughing. I said, "Well, look, I brought you." I was prepared, so I brought a photo of him and I on the set, and this. He goes, "Well, that's you, and that's definitely me. So I guess we know each other. Let's go to dinner." And what do you say? He was just a prince, just a gem.
Well, for context for the audience, Svengoolie, the horror host Svengoolie, really kind of owes everything to Zachary and other similar horror hosts, where there were horror hosts in every single city, introducing audiences in late night chiller theater type of scenarios. to all these great films. But for me personally, when I first saw Brain Damage, I had no idea it was coming. So when Elmo speaks, you expect something frightening, and
Mhm.
Zachary's voice
Right.
comes out. I laughed thinking about how much I laughed the first time I that came out of his mouth. It was great.
Yeah.
I
Dominic,
don't
do
know
you?
any. I don't know any horror monsters that are as charismatic in their vocal performance.
That's
And that's always how I describe Brain Damage to people. I say it has the most charismatic monster.
yeah. No, that's all Zachary. I mean,
Mm,
he did the work that I didn't have to do.
Mm.
it's brilliant. We
Yeah.
do have some more questions. Peter from our comment section here is asking, apart from the Coke can, of course, what material was Belial made from? Do you know the exact material it was that the special
Well,
effects guy
uh,
used?
it was basically standard latex rubber,
Yeah,
and that is why.
$16 of it.
Well, that's why he can't be touched today.
Mm,
I mean, I have his hand, and it has typical of latex rubber. It has shrunken and
hmm
solidified, so you can't. It's no longer a glove, and
hmm
that's the way that goes. And you can't. The only reason the Belial, the uh, another Belial I have the Belial I used for animation, even though it was never made for animation.
hmm
And the reason that survives is because uh, there's a hard foam shell of it
Hmm.
that the latex, because we wanted to have Kevin's Van Hentenrich's face,
hmm
so there's a hard shell, and then latex rubber was painted on that, and on that I actually painted the look of the monster, and uh, I have it under a cloth in my corner of my living room because I don't want people touching it, but I want him kind of there.
Yeah, to keep you company.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that you have a vial of blood left over. That's something that's endured, yes? In your fridge?
Yeah. Pardon moi. See
Okay.
the little hallway down there?
All right, we're gonna see some blood from basket case. Very exciting.
This
And while
is
Frank
crazy.
is retrieving that, you can see he has the ultimate collection behind him of VHS movies, just like as if um, he has his own video store from 42nd Street right behind him.
Here's the blood. It's in a bottle of Saratoga sparkling water. This is the blood we used every day on the film, and you can see the consistency is. Look at that. Look how thick that is. You
Like,
see?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
older than me, which is insane.
I mean, it's if I could pour some on my hand, but then I'd be.
no, you don't. Please don't. But you know what? These things, these are mementos that you keep around your house of accomplishments. It's one thing to be very nervous about everything that a production requires to get things done. But I don't know. Perhaps you tell me, like childbirth, you forget the pain, and then you just have the joy of what you have afterwards to share with people.
Well, I've personally always enjoyed childbirth. I wouldn't be a good father. I would have a baseball bat going each time one emerged. But when I
Well,
did,
speaking of things
wait,
emerging,
wait,
Frank.
let me
Oh, go
you
on.
mentioned childbirth. When I did Basket Case 3, I had to cut 11 pages out of the script while I was shooting it. So I don't know how I'm supposed to make a 90-minute film if I just lost 11 minutes.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Well, I had to make up a whole bunch of scenes fast, and they told me, and don't do any new scenes. We'll do that at the end. Sure. Okay, I'm not. And I will. Anyway, the scene I had to cut was the original version of the birth scene with Eve's,
Ah,
and it was great. I had all kinds of stuff, all kinds of liquids flying. It was 11 minutes of hilarious hell. And I said, well, why are you cutting it? And they said, well, it's going to offend women.
Mm.
I said, women are the ones that are going to get the joke. I mean, and you can't argue a certain point to the people who are giving you money.
Yeah.
True.
It's going to win.
Although that scene, I think, because you had to be creative, given what was taken away, you have one of the greatest, most hilarious moments in during that scene with the impromptu
Yeah.
performance. Please talk about that.
I mean, I had to make turn Basket Case. Basket Case 3 originally began as another X-rated type gore film. And then it started, they were, I mentioned earlier already, there were problems with theaters not wanting to show exploitation films or horror movies. And then I got the word that it's got to be a PG-13. And I'm thinking, get me off this film. And partially what I had to do to make new scenes was just write comedy, because I could do that very quickly. The two deputies having a long discussion about Mothman, who apparently did exist, or was a legend in part of whatever country. I mean, whatever county or part of this country it took place in Mothman. Isn't that great? Mothman. Like a DC character, isn't it?
Right.
Anyway, I'm sorry,
But
Dominic, I interrupted you.
well, I was going to say the scene where the baby Belial after baby Belial is popping out, and you just have this wonderful scene where it's just a running commentary of more and more and more, and it's beautiful. It's
It's a
hysterical.
one take, and we had something else planned. We wrote the scene as a poem. I mean, so it would rhyme. Why? I don't know. We thought that was funny. And Jim O'Doherty, who played him, was so nervous. I mean, he's sweating so much you can see the makeup coming off his neck. He was just such a bundle. And first two lines, he fucked up the first rhyme, which means none of this is going to follow. And instead of saying cut, I wanted to see what he would do. And it was the best thing ever, because he went into full panic mode, especially wondering why I haven't yelled cut. He's making this shit up, and it is so damn fun. I had to turn away from the camera because I didn't want him to see me laughing. And it's just is one of my favorite moments in a film. And I don't know, we just everybody applauded him at the end because they knew this was not a scripted performance. This was panic.
They're popping out like Pez candies.
Oh, isn't that great?
Panic can really make the best of some situations.
Dom, do we have additional questions we can ask from the audience?
We do. So we have a dual question from the same person, Zachar again, asking about like how you come up with your ideas. But I'm going to simplify it for you. You mentioned that you had a favorite like couple of years of movies when you were growing up. Was it 59, 60?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That
what
was
would you say are your like favorite films that probably
it's easy
ignited such
for that
creativity?
era. I remember loving Horrors of the Black Museum, and
Mm.
knowing full well that as a 9-year-old kid, or maybe 59, so I may have been 8 or 9, I don't know, but I knew full well that I shouldn't be seeing this stuff. This is heavy duty. I mean, she got spikes in her eyes. That and Two Hammers, especially the Hammer film, The Brides of Dracula. That one just did it for me, like in 1,000 different ways. It's still my favorite Hammer film. Um, I had never, you watch a Universal film, you watch Dracula's daughter, and she's,
Hmm.
and you watch, the gals, the brides in Brides of Dracula with their cleavage and their fags, and you're going, oh, I'll take that one. Yes, it was the only one I missed was Peeping Tom because it wasn't sold um, as a. I never came onto Long Island and that, but those films were like very, very important to me, and I would watch them over and over and over again. And I remember going to see a great Herman Cohen film called Blood of Dracula.
Mm.
Uh, Very misleading title, but it should have been called "I Was a Teenage Vampire." That's
Mm.
so this and this girl at a boarding school under hypnosis turns into this really really cool. I thought she was sexy when she was a vampire with the weird hair and the eyebrows going back and the most hideous gnarly teeth that was sticking out of her mouth, and it was great. And I grew up on a town on Long Island called Lynbrook, and at least in those years, it was they used to call it Lynbrook, USA, because it was the only town named Lynbrook in the nation. All right, so I'm watching Blood of Dracula, and these girls are having a little party in their dormitory room, and all of a sudden they hear a noise, and the guys have a ladder, and a couple of guys come into the room, and the guy says, "Oh, this they're from Lynbrook High." And I'm thinking, I couldn't have, I misheard that. Because there would be no reason why. And then I had to wait until it came on television and watched it. I went, oh my God, he really said Lynbrook. And so it's still one of my favorites just for that fucking moment.
When you were getting notice for the films you were making, and you're getting well, and you're getting opportunities to make more. You know, people have to like it somewhat for an opportunity for you to make more. Were you at any point interested in going quote unquote Hollywood to give that a try, to like go to California to
I had an agent, went out there. I had a great idea for a script. Everybody said they loved it. And of course, nothing happened about it. But didn't, I could realize it wasn't my environment.
Mhm.
It just wasn't. And I remember all the crazy jokes I have in it. This is not going to fly. It's all
Mhm,
going to change, and I'm convinced of that. But nevertheless, I mean, excuse me, I liked being on. I think it was the Warner Brothers lot, and walking down this one area and saw this perfect, like suburban street that you probably see in Leave It to Beaver and show like that. And it was done so smart because you could see the Hollywood sign unless you were in this position, this position,
Mhm.
this, and it was and you couldn't see it. So I would have enjoyed the budget of a Hollywood film. I would have enjoyed the sets of a Hollywood film, but I don't think it was. Just didn't feel like it was. I believed I started getting stomach cramps thinking about what if they say they're going to make this film, and I think once I heard they weren't going to make it, I really did breathe a sigh of relief. I think
hmm.
stick to what I know best.
Well,
Nobody
there's
in here shot in New York. What?
I was going to say there's a lots of compromise. Once you get so many other people involved, controlling the money, controlling the distribution, your vision is one of a tremendous amount of compromise. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think one thing I think is really admirable is that you have stuck to your guns to make the movies that you want for the most part.
Well, I didn't feel like I was there for any other reason. I just wanted to make my movie.
Yeah.
It's not ego. It's just that I have a better idea than what they're going to come up with.
Mhm.
You know, and uh, let me tell them to turn that down. Hey, all right.
Yeah, you're one of the things that I thought was kind of a fun confluence in terms of location and things that are happening is you're making Basket Case 3, and they're shooting I think RoboCop 3 in the same area, and somehow all of a sudden those two ideas kind of merged for the climax of that film. Could you tell us about that?
I don't know what to say. The big miss for that scene was James Lorenz was in RoboCop 3,
Hmm.
and he started Frankenhooker, and I wished I could have. I didn't know he was working on it. So I don't know. I don't think that way. Like what you were saying, I just didn't think that way. I'm just worried about uh, getting 11 more minutes into Best Case 3, and just I'm so upset that I can't use any gore in the film.
Mm.
There's
But
a there's a
you
terrible.
did put together this sort of Robo Belial robot suit,
Oh,
which is
that's what you were getting at. Yeah, yeah,
that's what I'm getting at, which is brings such a huge smile to my face when that scene
yeah.
occurs.
I mean, that was great, and it was wacky, and it's like a big robot with this puppet inside it. It was visually perfect. Okay, but but I really wanted to do that in the middle of the day, like at high noon, like a western.
Hmm.
Mm.
But the DP correctly said, "Come on, you're going to sacrifice all that atmosphere and fog." I mean, and he's right. He's right. All right, you know.
And you also had an opportunity to turn that into a bit of a musical, which I think was super fun.
That was just well, Annie Ross. What a treasure. I didn't know her background when I cast her in Best Case 2 as Granny Ruth, but I had just seen the film Throw Mama from the Train. I
Hmm.
remembered her in that. I thought she was very memorable. And when I met her, I just, I mean, I wanted a little old grandmother. And instead, once I met, Granny had has quotes around it. And when I met Annie, she was just so goddamn perfect. And as we were making the movie, she would, I remember that after the first day of shooting in the mansion, everybody was exhausted, all right, because we worked late. And I'm sitting on the bus, and nobody wanted to sit next to me. But Annie, she came over. She says, "Can I?" I said, "Of course." And then she took out a flask and she went, "You want to sit?" And I did. And I said, "Oh, whoa!" And then she just, and and then I started hearing stuff that she was talking about. And she says, "Oh, did you read that Lenny Bruce book?" And I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Lenny, yes, I liked it." And she goes, "Oh, well, I'm not in it, but I'm the one that his wife, Honey, chased around with a meat cleaver." Ah, so you did a pretty kind of colorful life. Well, she was a jazz musician. She was on the road, so she met just dozens of wonderful people. She was great with scatting. She wrote a great song that Bette Midler recorded called "I'm Out of My Head," and for years we would go see her at a jazz club, well, as a music club that
Mm.
she was there. I think every Tuesday night or Monday night. I forget now. It was Annie Ross night, and God Almighty, she was just great. She was just great. She was just great. So I don't know if I answered that or I went off on a detour, but she knew how to play it perfectly. God, I said to her, "It's not a comedy," and she goes, "Oh no, if we did it funny, it would be a disaster."
Mm.
Oh, you got it. You got it. When she did the scene where she's got the freaks all around and she's trying to mobilize them, uh, I did it in the form of a circle where I have the freaks all surrounding her in a circle. And I said to the camera crew, they said, "How are we going to do this?" And I said, "Well, we're going to do it with a handheld camera. You won't notice it so much because, we're going to be moving in between the freaks as foreground and then Annie." And I said, "She is going to direct us." And I said to Annie, "Don't rehearse it. Wherever you stop, we'll catch it. We'll be there. So you just do what you want." And she did one take and she said, "That was pretty good, but I'd like to try a few more." And I think, I seldom did more than two takes of anything, but I had to let her go because the performance was just perfect. So that's Annie doing her own directing. You
Mhm.
know.
I love them singing personality, and
Oh,
and I think
yeah. I said that to her. I said, "I'd like to put a song in," and she just laughed so hard, and she goes, "Okay, but what would be the song?" I said, "How about personality?" And she went, "Oh God, Frank, that would be great." So we didn't know if we could get the rights, and it was
Mhm.
owned by I think Lloyd Price. I
Mhm.
think that was the name, and we were surprised that it. You know, if you want to license a song, you got to deal with usually MCA Music, and they start by taking if you don't have the price, we need children. Your firstborn, I mean, they don't have enough money, and it turned out that Lloyd Price owned it. He didn't own it through any. So uh, called him up, and actually Edgar called him up, the producer of the film, and he said, "Hey Lloyd, we we'd love to use this song." Personality and sing it for the film. He didn't sound like he was anxious to do it or needed the money, and he just said, "Who's singing it?" And Edgar said, Andy Ross. He went, "Oh my God, holy shit. Yes, yes, yes." He said, and you know how much you want to charge her? $1. And he did. And that was great
Perfect.
because he wanted Annie.
Well, I'd like to say that what I really love about Basket Case 2 and 3, it's one long film, which is
Yeah.
wonderful. It
Oh,
just
it will
keeps
be
on
so
going.
long.
But what I really enjoy is how um, horror to so many of us, we feel like we're a bit of left of center. We don't feel like we're necessarily in the in crowd, and you feel like a bit of an outcast. And you made the outcasts the unique individuals rather than freaks. As extremely approachable, entertaining, well dressed at times,
Yeah.
um, and all singing in a school bus personality. It's such a great moment, and I think that's the appeal. Whether it's Belial himself or this whole new cast of characters that you put together, and I think that's what really resonates with all of your films.
Well, we also, that beautiful mansion they were living in, I didn't want a haunted house.
Mm.
No cobwebs, just freaks, you know. And, but we really were having a lot of fun making it. One of the freaks, I think his name was Cedric. And at the last minute, there was a head of lettuce there. And somebody said, "Why don't we give the lettuce to Cedric?" And I went, "Sure." And I says, "Just stare at it like it's important to you." All right. And Annie didn't know this. And Annie comes up and goes, "Oh, Cedric, I see you've brought your lettuce with you." And then moved on. Gee, this is getting stranger by the minute, you know? Gee, Cedric, I see you brought your lettuce with you. And she did that. She didn't even know it was going to be there. She had no, because we just shot it all in one take, gliding through the bus. Anyway, I do
That's
miss that kind
beautiful.
of filmmaking. So,
We all
And
do. We definitely all miss that kind of filmmaking. On that note, we do have about 5 or 6 questions that are the same question, which is one of your favorite questions, a yes or no. Will there ever be a Frankenhooker 2?
no.
What if
Story
we
was
gave you
done.
the money to do it?
I would do something else. It wouldn't be, that story is complete. It's
That's wonderful to hear because
it
it's a great film.
there's no reason. What are we going to do with them? Uh, it's just not. Uh, I mean, I mentioned this once to James Lorenz, and he said, "Oh God, I hope not." And I mean, we all felt it was no, no, no. This story worked, and let's walk away quietly before we fuck it up.
exploding fentanyl is not as fun as exploding crack, in my opinion.
Oh, that was super crack.
Super crack.
And that's what he called it. And this super crack is gonna, and I had a joke that SG wouldn't let me put in where, because they said, how are you gonna kill a guinea pig? And I said, I don't know, we'll figure something out. I knew what we were gonna do, but I didn't want. And I had Gabe just do this thing, and I said, Gabe, it doesn't have to look like a real hamster because it's only gonna be a few frames before it explodes. I said, but I don't want any gore in it. I didn't want any gore in Frankenhooker because it wouldn't be funny. All right.
Mm.
But the idea that it just went, you know, and we found the perfect sound effect, you know. Um, so what am I getting at? Oh, I know what I wanted to do. In the credits, they wanted a thing saying, no animal has been harmed.
Mhm.
or hurt during the making of this film. And I put it in the credits, and they saw it and said, take it out. And I said, no animal was hurt or harmed during the making of this film, except the hamster. You know, and that's the kind of thing that will get us in trouble. Oh,
It's true. People don't have the sense of humor. They take it literally.
I know.
Can't do that. Well, we only have about
Yeah.
a couple minutes left with Frank, and I just want to make sure maybe we could squeeze in one or two more questions
Sure.
if we can.
We do have a question from Sharon again, who is asking if we could crowdfund your dream project, like the movie that you can have for the rest of your life. What would it be? What does your dream project look like if you had carte blanche, blank check?
I would do a remake of Gus Van Sant's Psycho.
Oh, a shot for shot remake.
Yeah, and I'd do it in black and white instead of cutting that shit.
Oh, that's
I still want
brilliant.
to have,
I think you'd have to force Gus Van Sant to be in it so he would know what he did.
remember I was talking about some early VHS and beta tapes. Can I show
Uh-huh.
them? I want.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want. So I have to trudge over to the wall. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
That's going to be my answer from now on. If anyone asks me what kind of movie I'm going to make.
Psycho is going to be the ultimate punchline for years to come.
Oh yeah, completely.
I mean, technically, it's great, but it's like The Exercise. You know, Joe Dante. He's like, why is it necessary? All right, what do we have here?
Well, these are videotapes from the dawn. This is Allied Artist tape, and well, let me show you first. This is the first horror movie that. Whoa!
There you go. A little higher, a little. Yeah, there you go.
This is that's my phone. Pay no attention. This is the first horror film that ever came out on tape, and it was released in 1978. Okay, and
That's incredible.
and back then, it didn't occur to them to use their space wisely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You just get Blood of the Vampire, this picture, and on the back, other films that Magnetic put in. Just a giant list of other films. So, all right. So is this what kind of film is this? Is it all right? So then inside it, you get look. Oh, it's yellow. It's how to care for your video cassettes.
Incredible.
And it says video cassettes and video. Now it's huge. I mean, it goes on and on. Video cassettes and video playback equipment must be at room temperature 2 hours before use.
Wow.
Failure to have both at room temperature will cause the videotape to jam up inside the videotape machine and will require, I don't know, the machine to be serviced. Video cassettes require careful handling. Dust, dirt, and fingerprints should not be on it. Okay, never touch the tape itself. Store the video cassette in the container supplied. Container should be stored in an upright position.
Oh, whoops.
God, I'm already wanting to throw this out because there's like too many rules for me. All right, then so this is, I believe, the very first horror film that ever came out at least in the U.S. on
VHS or is that beta? That's VHS, right?
It was put out by Magnetic Video,
Mhm.
and a weird collision of fate. I wanted to say collision of fate. The man who ran this company, Andre Blay, financed brain damage.
Ah,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
Then
Frank, go ahead.
Here's another. This one, a beautiful French horror film called Blood Rose.
Mhm.
And if you want to know what this is about, well, you got the same problem. It's a tiny picture here. You got to turn it over, and it says the only thing you get is A red-blooded must for lovers of the macabre.
Ah.
Thanks
What
a
else do you need
lot.
to know?
And this one was put out by a film that didn't last too long. It was Allied Artists, and much to my amazement, it came with a thing that tells me I don't really own this disc.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
brilliant.
I mean, I probably paid $49, $59 for this thing, but it says lease agreement. And it says Allied Artists Video licenses this motion picture and cassette for home use only, rental or blah, 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 blah. Let me get to the lawyers. You know, it's so. And it says, the subject defended to okay. Allied Artists Video retains ownership of this cassette and the right to possession on or after January 1st, 1995. So I'm supposed to surrender that tape 95. And I said to a friend of mine, why don't we, it's got the address, why don't we go there and see if anybody got their tapes? I said, it's hilarious. We see a long line of people willing to, and sad people, I gotta surrender this to them. But anyway.
I'm gonna give my tape back.
Well, you had a great opportunity to curate a lot of these wonderful movies yourself. Something Weird Video, Sexy Shockers. Would you sort of bring that up for people who might not be aware that that's something that you did, that you really kind of curated a lot of these great titles that people wouldn't even know about?
Yeah, I don't talk about that because it was Mike Rainey's baby. That was his.
Mhm.
He created this company, and he. A long story, but he wanted me to come with him to the remains of Movie Lab, which was a huge lab in New York that had gone belly up, and all these. They had tons and tons of negatives that sitting and rotting and in the possession of the custodial staff. And from what we heard was, go there, and if they ask you, do you own the film? You say yes, and then they'll ask you for $200 so you could take your own movie. Okay, so that's fair enough. All right. So Mike Rainey wanted me to come out there. He wanted to come to New York, crash on my floor, and go to Movie Lab because, two of us knew rare films, but still, this was the day before the internet, the day before having a lot of access to stuff, and it was just incredible. I mean, we're going through it. I'm going, oh my God, the Curious Dr. Hump. Oh my God. I remember going
Kid
up
in a candy store.
Went up the ladder, and I said, guys, come here. I said, I found one we've never seen before. It's called The Monster of Camp Sunshine. Could it be? Could this be a monster in a nudist camp? Yes, it could, right? And, we found tons of great stuff. Now, the problem was this was on a Friday. We had to come back. We would put them aside, but Mike was agonizing about, he said, I have $1,000. I'm going to get 10 movies. Well, which 10 should you do? Well, he was up all night making lists. Couldn't come up with 10. He kept changing it. We're in the cab. I said, have you come up with the 10 yet? No. He says, but I got to stop at the bank. That should have been the first clue. So anyway, he comes into place and he says, okay, who's the head custodian here? And this guy says, oh, I am. He says, all right, come here. Can I speak to you for a minute? He says, look, I know what this is. I know what you're doing. You're hoping that we'll take a couple of movies so you can split the money with your staff, right? And the guy goes, yeah. So he says, how about instead of $200 a movie, how about I give you $5,000 right now and you walk away? And he goes, let me show you where the keys are. You go up, and that's what we did. And the next problem though is we had to get it out of the lab by the end of the day, or we'd come in the next day and we'd find out that there's more charges. Okay, and he called up a friend of his, Arthur Morowitz, who ran a company named Dystropix, a sexploitation company, and he said, "Arthur, I'm in a jam. Can I have one? Can you supply me one of your trucks? I got to get these things out of here." And Arthur said, "Sure, no problem," like that. And that was that. We had skids of stuff that were driven out to Seattle from New York of movies. And so, as a result of that, Mike wanted me to sort of be partners with him in this lurid adventure, which I loved. He said, "Why don't we put a line out with your name?" And I said, "Because no one's going to buy something with my name on it." And he said, "It'll help sell it." So I came up with the name Frank Henenlotter's Sexy Shockers from the Vault. And that was our horror film stuff, or not really horror, anything that we said, "Oh, that's shocking." All right. But it was a great time because I love the fact that I was seeing movies that were forgotten, would never come to earth again. And there's been, I, you know, I, it was just so much fun to look at this stuff and go, "Holy shit, this is a great movie!" And the other thing, I mean, I was with them for maybe 20 years plus. I did all the writing in the film under 17, 18, 19 pseudonyms and that, and did all the copy on the box covers and that, uh, and the punchline of that is I made more money from Something Weird Video than I ever made from making films.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
Who'd have
Is
thunk?
is the Something Weird video, is that trapped on VHS, or has it made the leap where people can access that in any other way?
Well, there's Lisa Petrucci, Frank's, Mike's widow, was has been licensing stuff. So I mentioned Curious Dr. Hump. You can buy it on Blu-ray from AGFA, dirt cheap, and you get two versions. You get the original Argentinian version, and you get the Americanized version. Two completely different films that have two different vibes. Beautiful looking stuff. And you can buy She-Mob. If you've not seen She-Mob, folks, just drop what you're doing and order that. I mean, you can order it, I guess, from Vinegar Syndrome because it's a partner label, AGFA, or or get it maybe from Amazon. I don't know. I don't. And She-Mob, I just can't tell. You're gonna just sit there going, "Oh God, I hope this film lasts forever." Just and it stars a character named Big Shim, and she she's got this bondage outfit with pointed nipples, and they're torturing some guy, and she walks over and hugs him, and he's and she says, "I'll show you that my nipples are as hard as my heart." I may
Sold.
made that up. I don't know, but there's something like that. Okay, so they are, and what's great is we found negatives. These weren't. It would be like 5 reels of picture negative and 5 reels of sound negative, and I mean, that's the best you can get. That's why for a company that was releasing, basically, Mike started releasing bootlegs, and he had a couple of Dave Friedman titles. And one day the phone rang, and a voice said, "Is this Mike from Something Weird?" He goes, "Hi, this is David F. Friedman. I noticed you're selling some of my movies. How did that happen?" And he said, "Dave, I stole them. I just made copies." He said, "But listen, I'd love to pay you for them and put more of your films out and do it from." And Dave laughed and he says, "Why? These films are dead. You can't do anything with them." And well, we did. And I remember and we also brought Dave to Chiller every October. And I remember one time Dave walks past the table and sees stuff. He says, "I don't know if you guys are completely insane or geniuses. And we both raised our hand and go, insane. So,
well, we do have a pair of the audience members who thank you for doing the hard work of keeping those films circulating. We have
well,
Sharon saying
I
you
have nothing to do with
saved.
the company. Once Mike died, I had to back off. This is old Lisa Petrucci doing it now. And
Of course.
Mike had a terrible death. And it was just, I mean, we all knew he was, he called me up. He would call me up once a day for 20 years, okay? I think except on Sunday, all right? And to talk about nothing, but he just, he said, the staff thinks that you're only getting paid to take my phone calls. And one day he said to me, oh, I don't know, coughing up a lot of blood. I said, well, it's probably nothing, which is the first thing you say when you want to get somebody to see a doctor. Go to the doctor, let him look at it. They'll probably give you 2 aspirins and tell you to call you in the morning, but that's what you got to do. And of course, they found a huge tumor resting in his lungs. And Mike smoked maybe 100 cigarettes a day. He was a human chimney. And okay, you do the usual. You do your chemo and you do your radiation, and then you take a break for 3 months, where they then resume, but they first want to take a look at how much the tumor shrunk. And in his case, the tumor not only didn't shrink, it was larger. So he did what I would have done. Okay, no more chemo, no more this. I'm checking out, and fine. Let me go peacefully. And he did at his home. And I never wanted to. I don't know how. I'm sure Lisa felt the same way, but I mean, I didn't want to even think about a new film or something for the company, because Mike was the company.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Well, all I could say relative to the films that you guys were making available, this is an audience that really gobbles this stuff up. So they're. I think when there's always that one person who says, "Who wants to see this stuff anymore?"
Oh,
There's all the hands
that
go up.
person's never seen Olga's House of Shame.
I want to know about that Sunshine camp film. Is it all it's cracked up to be with the monster in the nudist camp? That's my question.
Well, first of all, none of them are cracked up to be any good. They're sexploitation, but this one has a sense of humor, and it works. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the ones that fail miserably, and like the beasts that killed women. How could you not? That's about a gorilla loose in a nudist camp. Sitting there watching and going, I wish something would happen on this film. And it's shot in vibrant color. And, what do you make of it? Well, what I make of it is what it is. It's probably a movie shot on a weekend by Barry Mahon. And to me, I love it. I just love it. I don't care. I wasn't expecting an MGM movie. No, really. I lied.
Well, neither was I when I saw Orgy of the Dead by Ed Wood. I expected Night of the Living Dead, and I was very surprised when I saw what I saw.
Yeah, we didn't get that from. We may have gotten that directly from Stephen Apostoloff. Yeah, I don't remember anymore. I remember very little.
Well, Frank, it's an absolute pleasure. We really appreciate you sitting down with us to talk about your films and your favorites.
Well, thank you.
And if there's any last thing you'd like to say to our appreciative audience, I want to thank you real quickly for taking the time to be in Search of Darkness 90s. We're going to see you talking about these films, and very excited for you to be part of the talent of that documentary.
Good.
And I'd like to thank you personally as well, from myself and my brother, who I think is watching from the UK. Your films bonded us together when we were young. Thank you.
Good. Well, hence the accent.
Exactly. Yeah. If you are wondering, yes.
I was in, I don't know where I was, somewhere in the UK, and when somebody said to me, "Oh, I love your New York accent." And I'm thinking, I don't have an accent. So you do so. You say stairs without the R. You go stairs. Okay, well, he's right. All right. So,
Well,
well,
Frank,
thank
stick
you guys.
around. Yes, please stick around for just a minute after we say goodbye to the audience. But thank you, everyone, for coming out and sitting and talking to Frank. Weave some entertaining tales, true and maybe not so true. I don't know.
Oh, they're all true. You can't write that stuff. You know.
Truth is stranger than fiction. Very,
Yeah.
very. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Frank.
Okay. Oh, and also if you